Yesterday, at a very impressive ceremony, I, a citizen of Sweden, received a Faraday medal. I feel a very great gratitude for this great honor. England, with its great achievements in so many fields of human endeavor, has for me always been the heart of the world. After having taken my degree as an electrical engineer at the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, and having worked 3 years in a manufacturing firm in Sweden and 2 years at Siemens Schuckertwerk in Berlin, I had a great luck to be engaged in 1908 in the construction of the first Swedish state power plant at Trollhättan. I think it was at that time the biggest hydroelectric plant in Europe. At the age of 29 years, I became head of the electrical department of the State Power Board. This department had a task of dealing with electrical problems and transmission of power and its utilization and commercial distribution. Right at the beginning, I was faced with an important decision. At an early stage, it had been decided in principle that the state power plants should be built for a frequency of 25 cycles, in view of the plans for long-distance transmission in the future. But with the rapid evolution of electrical transmission, it was evident to me that these reasons were no longer valid. Notwithstanding the energetic resistance of older colleagues, all new plant was thenceforward built for 50 cycles, and this frequency is now used throughout Sweden. During the First World War, the Swedish consumption of electricity rose very rapidly. It became apparent that within 1 or 2 decades, great quantities of power would have to be sent from the vast water power sources in the north of Sweden to middle and south Sweden, where the major part of the load is concentrated. This led me to work out the first general scheme for a trunk line system connecting different parts of Sweden over long distances. This gave rise to another plan. The State Power Board had until then been concerned to develop certain big waterfalls belonging to the state. Why should not the state, over its trunk line system, transmit power also to the private power companies? They produced at that time most of the electricity and still account for about 50%. But the state had only a very small proportion of the suitable waterfalls in the north, and so we decided to buy without delay a much increased number. In 1920, I was appointed vice president, and in 1938, president of the State Power Board. I retired at the end of 1947. With the freedom prevailing in Sweden, private power interests have obtained concessions on lines for 220 kilovolt from the north to the south of the country to be run at the side of the state lines, but on the condition that they should be operated together with the latter in a rational way. At the end of the last World War, each party had two such lines. It was then already evident that a supplementary system was necessary for an extra high voltage. It was to be 380 kilovolt. And for reasons of overall economy, it was decided that the state should alone build and operate all new trunk lines from 220 kV upwards. The interests of the private power companies find expression in a special council, which has been formed with members from both parties and advises on new plans and current operations. In many cases, power is transmitted over the state power lines from water power stations in the north under private enterprise to their distribution systems in southern parts of the country. Water power is still predominant in Sweden, but nuclear power will be needed in 1 or 2 decades, and pioneer nuclear plants are to be built in the near future. During my time in the State Power Board, I also worked in a private capacity. I was thus, during 30 years, a member of the board of directors of the big iron ore company Luossavaara-Kiirunavaara Aktiebolag, and for 20 years president of the board of directors of Telefonaktiebolaget LM Ericsson, and consultant for the Shannon scheme in Ireland and for the power plant now under construction at Aswan in Egypt. This has certainly helped me to get a broad view of economic problems.